I think the interesting thing both about Kalonaho and Freedom at Midnight, and I'm going to only say this once and then I'll never ever say it again, and possibly several memes are going to be made about this.
What drives us is an intention that we continue to find. So when I researched him and when I understood him, his balance of emotions and logic was just so glorious.
While that's a lovely line, you'll chuckle at it, but eventually look at what he has come to do.
Gandhi and Jinnah were both lean and thin, so we were casted because of our physicality.
If I show blood from the first episode, people will just feel that, oh my, it's too violent. I want youngsters to watch the show, and youngsters today are cool and they are hip and they need to be spoken in a particular language.
I know.
I really want to.
I think you should hug him.
I feel I need to hug you.
So yes.
I know it's redundant to start with Kal Ho Na Ho, but I feel it. I feel the same kind of ethos is followed in Freedom at Midnight too. For example, there is one scene in Kal Ho Na Ho where Shah Rukh reads the letter, right, and the same kind of emotion of unconditional love or something that cannot be put into words. The same kind of thing we see in that table where Gandhi says Nehru should be the Prime Minister of India.
After that scene, I told him, like, Bapu, मैं आपसे मरते दम तक प्यार करूँगा और उसके बाद भी.
And Siddhant said,
But I think that is it's an incredible session that you have.
Yeah, it's connected with it.
You have connected it fantastically because actually I also connected it at that time. I think the interesting thing both about Kalonaho and Freedom at Midnight, and I'm going to only say this once and then I'll never ever say it again, and possibly several memes are going to be made about this, but it's sacrifice, right? It's just pure sacrifice, right? In the case of the Shah Rukh Khan character, playing Aman, he knows exactly what is going to happen. He knows exactly that he has that much only limited time left in his life where he needs to bring goodness and love to the people that matter to him, and there's sacrifice. And I think Gandhi is in the same kind of space at that time. I'm not saying that Gandhi and Aman are in any way equal or comparable, but I think Mahatma Gandhi at that time. Mahatma Gandhi embodies sacrifice, right? He only asks for sacrifice. There is a scene where he tells, I think, Nehru कि हमें दुश्मन को हराना नहीं जीतना है, right? I think so that particular so that's the reason why that's the connection that I would possibly find between those two scenes. The other important thing was that when we were doing the scene, I remember I went to Sid and I told Sid the same thing I told Saif. I said that in this scene, don't move. Don't let my attention come to you. And I told Saif the same thing, that in this scene, don't let my attention come to you. Don't move. You're standing right behind Shah Rukh in the entire scene. There's a track onto Shah Rukh. And if you move even slightly, my attention will come to you. The scene belongs to him, right? Similarly, it's very giving as an actor for Sid to understand that the scene belongs to Sardar, right? Because Sardar turns around and says कि मतलब हम before anything we are soldiers of Gandhi, right? So it belongs to him. So I remember telling him don't do that, and that is the exact instruction I gave to Saif, because I just felt at that moment, if for instance I go to either Nehru or in that case I go to Saif, you would feel that they are not worthy of what is being given to them.
Talked about demystifying these characters,
Yes.
right? But at the same time, in the treatment that you give it has a lot of cinematic value to it. For example, I felt, when they all sit together, it kind of resembled 12 Angry Men. And then when Gandhiji is given the umbrella, it's kind of like Schindler's List. So it's like this drama in it, but you also want to demystify. So where did you draw that line?
No, when I say demystify, my whole is for you as an audience to get a first-hand perspective of what is happening inside that room, right? We know what Jinnah, we read enough of Jinnah, we've learned enough of Jinnah, we have spoken to people who possibly have read more about Jinnah, same way with Jawaharlal Nehru and with Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Patel. But we don't know what actually happened in those rooms. We know there is an event. We know that there are people who are discussing that event, and we know what the outcome of that discussion may have been, because we know the two things. These are the broader things that we know. So now I have to manufacture, or I have to create what actually Jawaharlal Nehru would say, knowing fully well what Jawaharlal Nehru's personality, what he stood for, what he worked towards. Similarly with Mahatma Gandhi symbol. So that's what I mean. I meant that I want to put you first and sitting in the chair along with the 12 angry men. There's a 13th chair, and you're sitting in that chair and you're listening to these guys, and then hopefully you will be able to understand why they have taken the decision that they had to take. Right? I think that is that was extremely key for me in terms of shot taking, in terms of drama, in terms of the music, in terms of everything.
So coming to the characters now, there is a lot of moral dilemma that is involved in, I think, throughout the show. When it comes on a personal level, when you are acting that character, we may hold certain politics, but when we are being in the skin of another character, how difficult was it to learn? How difficult was it to adjust to that fact?
उल्टा जाएंगे इस बार. Let Arif also understand what you all are saying.
I don't need to actually. That's the character.
मतलब अगर आप किसी और की काया में प्रवेश करते हैं while you are acting,
character. When I see him giving an answer, I feel like
Mostly. Even I feel.
so कुछ क्वालिटीज आप लेते हैं, कुछ क्वालिटीज अपनी जोड़ते हैं उसमें, और इस तरह से वो कैरेक्टर बनता है.
Just to add to that, I found sense of humor in a lot of episodes. What was the secret behind that? Managing, you're talking politics, you're talking about the history.
The secret behind that. Every chance that he got, he came in with his. Every space, between, because it's a heavy story, right? And it was a great solace for us also when we were moving along. And in terms of, it's amazing when you're actually embodying a character and you're living their journeys in that atmosphere. You feel the reality. You want to feel the reality of the emotion.
I wanted to see Sardar saying कि when he says कि मुझे Nehru being all Nehruesque and saying कि मुझे सोचने के लिए वक्त चाहिए. You expect Sardar to come back with this saying, हाँ भाई, तुम तो जवान हो, तुम्हारे पास वक्त तो है, मेरा क्या?
पता नहीं स्वतंत्रता मिलने से पहले राम नाम सत्य हो जाए.
And then he turns around and he says, remember, he turns around and says कि मुझे लगता था कि मतलब
Blackmail
with Bapu, and he says,
मैं तो धरने पे नहीं बैठ
जाता, पर मुझे
गोली खानी पड़ी कुछ खा के.
There are a lot of exchanges between Nehru and so it's like basically within the party they are rivals, but the sense of camaraderie that was shown, how difficult was it? Because I think that you are correct in this. It's not within the party that they are rivals. They are on opposite sides of possibly certain moments that they are. They may be an opposite, but they are committed to one thing, or maybe two things. They are committed to Mahatma Gandhi, and they are committed to India and the idea of India. They were there is no question about that, right? And the third thing that they both are against Muhammad Ali Jinnah, right? So. Yeah, but how difficult for a character to have that sense of balance, right? To strike that balance, right? You have to have that
drawing the line.
Yeah, you have to have that.
Yeah. It's over the years. These guys have been together over the years, like together every single day, like in the books and all of that you read. They know that they've spent more time with each other than their own families, obviously. So when you know each other so well, there is some sort of comfort in the disagreement also.
You're bound to be able to find some kind of this thing, right? And so even for him, when he enters, to see Gandhi doing some kind of which in Bambaya you say chabi, right? Where he comes in and he says कि मतलब कांग्रेस मुझे तो लोग कहते हैं तो मैं तो बहुत तेज चलता हूँ, पर लगता है तो कांग्रेस मेरे से तेज और भी तेज चलने लगी. You don't expect that from him, right? But that's what I meant by demystify. That's what I meant, that while that's a lovely line, you'll chuckle at it, but eventually look at what he has come to do, right? Why has he come to do it? Because prior to this, he has just told Sardar that Satya ki sapai सत्य में
सत्ता के लिए कब से लड़ने लगे?
कैसे कब से ये एंड क्या हमें वो एक कदम अपना आत्मा को कुचल के which are lines that you expect Mahatma Gandhi to have said, but it has not resulted in what he wanted to do, because therefore there's a track in the end what is going to happen, right? Because provisional he decides to do a provisional conditional agreement, and it very clearly looks as if things are shifting and I have to do something about it. I need to take charge again. And he does, right?
So taking charge, the ego battle between Jinnah and Gandhi. A lot of physical aspect go into the acting, right? When you act as Jinnah or as Gandhi, there is a sense of fatigue, that there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, but at the same time you have to have that sense of authority. How difficult was it to manage?
So the good thing is that Gandhi and Jinnah were both lean and thin, so we were casted because of our physicality. But the difference between Gandhi and Jinnah, I think, came because Jinnah had a certain reverence for Gandhi when Gandhi first comes in. If you've seen that scene also, where the flashback they go. And then ideologically they start separating, because Gandhi had a very hands-on, unique way. He reached down to the grassroots level and understood perhaps the plight. Jinnah was a little detached in that sense from the world he came and inhabited. He had maybe an intellectual way of looking at it, more conversational, more deliberating about what things are going to happen. So they slowly started drifting apart. But there was, I think, some sort of reverence which Jinnah had for Gandhi, or Gandhi had for Jinnah primarily. Coming back to your original question about the personal lives, like for me, the funniest thing is how we address Nehru as Peter Pan. So, that was very interesting when it came in the script, and, it brought a warm smile to me also. So the personal life of these giant historical figures, I'm sure they have, an insight into
and it's
that.
not as if only these guys are fun. You and Liaquat.
Liaquat and me. I was going to, So, Liaquat kind of finishes because Jinnah was not that. Yeah, he passes these snide remarks to Liaquat, trying to explain a big thing in one phrase or one metaphor which Liaquat doesn't get. Then he uses Liaquat as a clutch to translate certain Hindi or Urdu.
क्या कहते हैं वो?
So throwaway line. So Liaquat is like his bouncing board. So these little nuggets you get of their personalities, which otherwise you wouldn't have known. You could have read about all these great people.
I don't know whether they happened actually, but it's just very entertaining. It's entertaining. The scene becomes entertaining, right?
Which is the next?
There's a scene in the second season where Liaquat says, "मैं कुछ समझा नहीं." He says, "What do you say? What do you say?" उसमें नहीं क्या बात?
उसमें कौन सी नई बात?
Yeah, so, I mean, you have to bring humor. It is otherwise so heartbreaking, and it is so stressful what is happening inside each episode. You have to find some
kind of
relief somewhere or the other, right? They also have to find some relief somewhere or the other, right?
It's like this Chaplin-esque.
Fatty, he calls her Fatty. I should love those small songs.
Talking about that, that Operation Seduction part where Lord Mountbatten and his wife comes. That's a very interesting idea of how British Raj is like basically very seductive in nature. Was that intended? Was that the Operation Seduction?
Yeah,
part?
it's there. In the book.
So is that what as a filmmaker when you included that in the series? Did you want to say that how glamour and politics
But that is
goes
exactly
hand
what
in hand?
she chose to do. She decided that the best way for the transition of power to be effective and non-controversial was to try and win over these people, right? What had always happened is when Attlee even says that these London trained lawyers are running circles around Wavell, because he was constantly trying to tell them what to do, and they were fabulously intelligent, right? All of them, and all of them had been trained in law, so they would not this thing. So she decided to say, okay, I'll win them over, right? The whole sequence where the vegetarian food comes in. So it's incredible that the first time people were allowed Indians were allowed into the Viceroy's house was, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Indian servants, but I think as guests, possibly for a dinner or on an occasion like this, so it was the first time.
So just a couple of questions that I wanted to ask more. So when the cinematic treatment that you gave, there are a lot of violence that's happening, and it's not, there's no bloodshed as such that you show.
Yeah.
But the impact is there by, by metaphors, like the fire is there,
Yeah.
certain elements.
Yeah.
So what made you not show the bloodshed that happened
I
instead of
can tell
focusing
you
it on?
in two
Was it
words.
because it's too repeated, the
Two words I can do.
Hmm.
Quentin Tarantino. Two
yeah,
words.
Inglorious Bastards.
No
Yeah.
matter what, and unfortunately, I have been distinct for showing it the way I've showed it. But we knew that there are so many set pieces of riots and protests and violence that we did not want the audience. We don't want the audience. So it's a treatment. I'm not trying to make a statement. I'm trying to do a treatment so that people will continue watching all the 7 episodes. If I show blood from the first episode, people will just feel that, oh my, it's too violent. I want youngsters to watch the show, and youngsters today are cool and they are hip and they need to be spoken in a particular language, which they are being exposed to constantly on every form of.
That Sarojini Naidu's ace up his sleeve, that was like, it was very fresh to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's a nice blend of old world charm and the newness, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
And we knew that we were going to have to constantly. I wanted to make sure that, like, to make you feel as if it's authentic and real. So we were going to be using a lot of footage and real footage, and so therefore what Arif is wearing as Muhammad Ali Jinnah in that scene, I had to decide with my team that I'm going to use the real photograph of Jinnah. So basically, he cannot be wearing a sherwani if Jinnah is wearing a suit in the same for the same meeting.
right. So Siddhant, I just wanted to ask you one thing. The scene where you smoke first. So in the initial episodes, you the aura of Nehru is a very calm, dignified leader, right? Then when the tensions start to simmer, there is a change. The body language changes, and
I want to hug him. I
know.
I really want to
I
hug him.
think you should hug
I
him,
feel I need to hug you.
sir. Yes.
I need to hug you. I need to hug you. मतलब I really need to. Oh my God! उसको बुलाओ यार. रात के फंक्शन के लिए बुलाओ उसको. I had to tie his hands up. I was so sad that for the first 2 episodes I had to tie his hands up. You cannot say anything. You're on the back foot. You're on the back foot. You're on the back foot. You will come. You will come.
But the pacing, right? How did you manage to be? And then when it's not very consistent, when Lord Mountbatten's wife comes and talks to you, there's a particular way that you react as an actor. So how did you do it? How did you navigate that part where politics, everything, like it's basically that the moral dilemma that I was speaking of comes here, right? I think the most that was seen in that last episode where it is the culmination. It is like it's a history. It's what makes history. So how do you see it? How do you see the whole?
My idea was to understand the person literally, and as a human being, we are all battling between emotions and logic. And what drives us is an intention that we continue to find. So when I researched him and when I understood him, his balance of emotions and logic was just so glorious. And end of the day, there is so much inside of a human being. Every time you meet someone, you will come across as a different person. Every time you meet a woman, like watching his videos and all of that, every time he met a woman, he bowed. Every time he met a man, he stood straight. That speaks a lot about a human being, a gentleman, barring the masalas. But end of the day, it's the journey has also been sort of, these guys came in as a ray of hope that they'll do the right thing. The Mountbattens, previously all the leader, whoever's been here, have sort of been very, that consistent. We want to rule, we want to divide and rule. That British way of thinking. So these two came in as a ray of hope, and our discussions together and moving on in the story. Congress is helpless. They don't have the power. While they know that they're widely spread, they are going to be the party. And it's decided he's going to be the prime minister. He's going to lead. He's powerless. He cannot do anything. Especially with the violence on one hand, Britishers planning to leave on the other hand. it's a lot of chaos. The only way is to just hold that calm and hold that, you know, that ground intention that I'm going to do the right thing. I have plans. Let the right time come. So for me also, it was like, you know, it's like
funnily the change happens with the one person that you would think that he would never go against, right? Which is which is the Gandhi and Nehru scene. That's the
that
first
was
time
a
you.
big
That's the first time you
moment for
feel
me
that he
also.
actually stands tall and he says no.
Yeah.
I will support Sardar.
Yeah. Just one last question. In most of the series, it's very clear as to the how Muslim League incites violence, right?
So how?
Muslim
League
League
incites
incites violence,
Yeah.
Jinnah, for political reasons.
Yeah.
But then there's only one last scene where everything is over. When India finally gets freedom, there's a typewriter and Gandhi must pay. Was it meant indicating that some other forces?
No, it it's
There's
only
nothing-
meant to indicate that the one person who has advocated non-partition from the very beginning, and that मतलब the show starts with the देश का बंटवारा होने से पहले मेरा शरीर का बंटवारा होगा. It only bookends that eventually that he is blamed for everything. You broke the promise, but the country is getting partitioned. You must pay.